With week 4 of the college football season currently underway, we've got several matchups this weekend that are going to possibly have C teams separate themselves from the pack or find themselves in the boat of mediocrity and possibly out of the top 25. Want to find out what those matchups are and how the other pack of the top 25 will be, where they'll be, and who they'll be hosting? Find out next on Gridiron Gab Triple Option. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you all for joining us for another edition of Gridiron Gab Triple Option. I am, of course, the one and only Mr. CeeLo. Glad to be joining you yet again, and if you guys are aware, and I'm sure you are, the Texas Longhorns are now the number one team in the land. And, before we get started, where are my manners? I hope you guys are doing great. It seems like we're moseying along, and as always, the season is already starting to get away from us. We're in week 4, and it just seemed like it got started. But we've still got some identities to be washed out and worked out. And want to give a gab out to my man Brad once again. Always being one of the top fans in the Gridiron Gab Triple Option universe. I'm not saying that. He says, I like to see your preview on the Georgia-Bama unroll tide and go dogs. I'll do that game, of course, next week. Most of you guys know that the University of Georgia is off this week, and they'll be going up to Tuscaloosa to face Kalen DeBoer and the Alabama Crimson Tide. But that's further on down the line. Today we're going to discuss week 4. And what I'd like to do is go through, talk about every team that is having a favorable matchup that they most likely will win, and then go back and discuss the games that I feel like are going to have some kind of excitement tomorrow. And then right there at the end, of course, you guys have your chance to speak up. I know you will, Brad. Thanks, buddy. But let's start with number 1 Texas, as they will host University of Louisiana Monroe. I don't want to go into this because one of the top stories of this week has been, of course, the anointing of Arch Manning to the starting position at quarterback, who he looked impressive last week. But as I said, this is another underwhelming football team that they will have to play. We'll get more insight as to what Arch Manning can do in a later date, but I see this not being much. But in an update, I've heard Quinn Ewers has a substantial oblique injury. Anytime you're dealing with obliques, it's going to be it's about like that hamstring. It's a really hard injury to gauge. Like I said, it's that injury that runs along the abdomen, and it could take a couple of weeks, but it could take a couple of months. So, hopefully he can get back. And do I think Arch Manning is a guy that can win these lesser games? Of course. But let's not harp on that until we come to that bridge. But I think Texas handles business, and they stay at number 1. I don't think they struggle. Now, then we have Ohio State hosting Marshall. Now, generally, this game has given Ohio State a few hiccups for the first 2 or 3 quarters, especially with Ohio State not really separating itself this year. So am I going to say that Ohio State, don't be surprised that Ohio State's on upset alert? Yeah, I'm not going to be surprised if I see this game close, because Ohio State has not established itself as to me, they're not the 3rd best team in the country. I'll just go ahead and say that. Next is Ole Miss versus Georgia Southern. Really, Lane Kiffin? Really? Go Eagles. Of course, we've got a matchup between Missouri and Vanderbilt. I don't think Missouri is the seventh best team in the country. However, don't be surprised with Vanderbilt pulling off some surprising games this year that they don't walk in and give Missouri a scare in their building. Just saying. We'll come back to Miami and South Florida. Penn State, Kent State. This could be this wouldn't surprise me because Penn State hasn't showed me anything either. It would not shock me if Kent State made this a game and they're on upset alert. 13 Kansas State, BYU. BYU's got a decent team, but I still think I think Kansas State is going to pull away late, even though because this game, of course, is at BYU. So I think this could be a game. This really could be a game, and Kansas State better be careful. And it being a night game, it's one of those games we call the wake up Sunday morning games. The what wake up Sunday morning. LSU against UCLA is a game I was debating talking about, but I think with the game being in Death Valley and UCLA's played decent. Let's just say that. But I think LSU has lost their one. They've had their one letdown. I think the rest of the games they lose are going to be games that are against superior opponents. I think Brian Kelly got his boys' attention. Same deal with Marcus Freeman and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. If you guys know me, I have my channel, Talk Like a Champion. If you want to go see my full breakdown of Notre Dame versus Miami, go over there and check it out. And make sure you subscribe as well. But I don't see this game lasting very long. Louisville, number 19, Louisville versus Georgia Tech is going to be an interesting game, you guys. So make sure if you have the ability to watch it on ESPN2 at 3:30, you check this one out. Would not surprise me if Louisville upset. Then there's Iowa State at Arkansas State. I expect Iowa State to handle business at home and put away Arkansas State. Now, don't let Arkansas State fool you. This could be a sneaky sleeper upset. Then there's Northern Illinois against Buffalo. I truly believe that Northern Illinois is going to continue its not necessarily dominance, but its roll through its schedule. I don't expect this game to be any different. They got them at home. And then you've got the final of the top 25 teams. You've got Texas A&M back in the top 25 facing off against Bowling Green. That should be easy sledding, where we see Georgia off this week, Alabama off this week, Oregon off this week, and we've got Nebraska and Illinois playing tonight. I wasn't able to get the game to you guys, but I missed out on the Clemson North Carolina State game. That game could also be a game that is interesting and intriguing enough in itself. So we definitely want to keep an eye on that game as well. That one slipped my eyes, you guys. But you definitely want to keep an eye on North Carolina State, as they were dismantled by Tennessee, and you know they're going to want some get back. And Clemson can't afford any more losses if they're going to be in that top 12. So that's a game that I feel like is going to be on upset alert, and we should definitely keep an eye on. And as I said before, you've got Illinois and Nebraska going at it right now. And I may just do something on that with that game looking very tight. But let us go for, in my opinion, the lesser of the matchups, the Utah and the Oklahoma State game. Now, for most people who don't know, Cam Rising is expected to play tomorrow. However, the reason why I look at this game and I think to myself, why is this even going to be a football game? Well, first of all, it's in Stillwater. And secondly, the Utah Utes are not as strong defensively as they have been in the past. The Utes, I will say this, and a lot of people have disagreed with me, and I don't care, but I stick with what I saw last year. What I saw last year was a football team in the Utah Utes who had such a good defense that they were able to drag it out until, I think if I recall correctly, it was like week 6 or week 7 before the Utes finally ruled Cam Rising out for the season. And the reality of it is, to me, Cam Rising is one of those guys. Not only is he really good throwing the football, but he's really good at throwing it on the run and creating so many different opportunities for his team. And when you look at what he's capable of doing when he's on the field, he creates so many different mismatches. And looking at what he allows the offense to do, he allows them to do so many different things, whether it's in the running game or whether it's in the passing game. And he's able to be such a great ball distributor and creator for his offense. He's a nightmare for defenses. Now, on the other side, when you look at Bowman, who is a guy who's been here about like Cam Rising, it seems like forever. And then you got Ollie Gordon, who is arguably the best running back in the country. His numbers not nearly as impressive as they were last season. And you got to understand that this is a football team that does play with the chip on their shoulder on the offensive line. But this is the problem that I have with this game. I'm looking at the Utah Utes, who are a team that has still been able to win games without Cam Rising. And that is troublesome when you're playing this team, because so many people look at when you have Isaac Wilson coming out in replacement of Cam Rising, and they're still able to substantially win the game. And, this is a team that has been able to handle its business despite the fact that they've not had Cam Rising. And you got to consider what this team is able to do. Now, as far as being able to make amends for or compensate for what they don't have, it's nothing short of remarkable. They do such a phenomenal job making things happen. And you look at where you got Michael Bernard, who's done such a phenomenal job of running the football and doing different things. What I love about Utah is they're going to find different ways to run the football, and that's where they're at their best. Even when Cam Rising's not there, their goal is they want to be able to run the football. They want to slow you down and play pace. This is where the Oklahoma State Cowboys are going to have to be able to be patient, because not even necessarily patient, but they're going to have to get Utah off the field, because if they cannot get them off the field, they're going to be in trouble. Because this is a high octane offense. Gundy likes to run the offense high octane. And the reality of it is, if you cannot run the high octane offense, if you're Gundy, you're going to be in trouble with this Utah defense. Now, I'm not saying it's as good as last year. As I said, I still feel like this defense is not nearly as effective and elite as it was last season. But I do believe if you get in a situation where you get stagnant and you're not making this offense go sideline to sideline, and you're not allowing them to, and you're allowing them to get set and see what you're doing, you're going to be in trouble. Gundy's going to have to go up tempo, and I'm sure he will. He understands that Bowman is at his best when he does it that way. However, this is the one game where I see that they're going to call it an upset because of the rankings. However, do I think that with Cam Rising's return, does Oklahoma State go nuts? I think Oklahoma State can control the game. However, I think ultimately what happens is Cam Rising and the Utah Utes, their defense is going to be a tad bit too much for them. However, in the words of Lee Corso, not so fast, my friend. I feel like the Oklahoma State Cowboys are going to be able to get some push against the Utes. And I believe that the Cowboys are able to pull the small, minute upset because of the fans in Stillwater and Cam Rising's inability to do what he needs to do. And being that the Cowboys are going to be able to run up-tempo, they're going to be able to get a lot of plays in, and that Utah defense is going to get tired in the second half. And what's going to happen is it's going to be a last drive or a next to last drive, and the Cowboys pull the victory. Let us move to the, I don't call it the marquee matchup. It's one of the marquee matchups of the week. Number 11 USC versus number 18 Michigan. Now, many of you will probably say this is not a matchup that needs to be discussed. And I'm almost with you, because there are a lot of people that are saying, ooh, USC, they're finally able to stop somebody. Not so sure about that, y'all. I'm really not. I'm not really sure if USC has shown that they can truly stop anybody, and that's the question. Because while Quinn Ewers and the Longhorns were able to walk into Ann Arbor and win this game, I'm not so sure that USC is on Texas's level yet. I mean, we have to look at the tests. Now, everybody's going to say, ooh, look at that win on against LSU. Impressive, but not really. Because I agree with Brian Kelly. Kelly said something that was true. His guys lost the game. Well, it's kind of like common sense, but in reality, is it? I'm not sold that Lincoln Riley can stop anyone yet. I'm not sold that his defense can stop anybody in general. He did slow down LSU, but LSU ain't Michigan. And a lot of people are saying Michigan's offense is not efficient enough to give the Trojans any issues. Well, I'm going to disagree with that under this reasoning. Michigan doesn't necessarily have to have good quarterback play to win this game. They don't. They don't have to really they don't have to get ready with a passing game. I mean, we already have heard that Alex Orji is going to be the quarterback. There have been many that have said Coach Moore has already made a rookie mistake by putting a guy like this, putting a guy with the least amount of experience, or a small amount of experience. In 3 years, he's had 7 attempts, I think. 7 pass attempts, if I remember correctly, against USC. I can tell you right now, Orji's probably going to be a guy that has a lot of movement. They're not just going to put him back there, but if he can't throw, I mean, if he has a lack of being able to throw the football, they're not just going to throw him out there. They're just going to throw him out there. I don't think Sharon Moore is going to take the desperate approach with another top opponent coming in and say, hey, we're going to put the whole weight of this team on your shoulders and say, hey, you're going to go throw and win us a game. However, do I think USC's got enough ammunition to win this game? They do. They have a lot of ammunition. However, when you look back at this football game, and as I said, the matchup predictor is picking USC to win. Moss is a good quarterback, but what's really a hard sell for me is Moss has got over 600 yards passing in 2 games, but only 2 scores. And honestly, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that. I know USC back in its glory days in the 2000s, they had a 2-headed monster. But I'm not so sure if a lot of what USC does is what I call a balanced offense, which is something Lincoln Riley has never been known for. And Moss is going to be the difference in this game, not Orji. Orji's not going to be the difference maker, because I can tell you right now, Michigan's going to set up everything to be safe. Moss is going to have to be the difference maker. And I believe Moss is going to make some mistakes with this loud crowd and this effective defensive line. Do I think USC has a really good offensive line? No. I think they have a pretty good line. You have to be really good. You have to be really good like the Longhorns to go into the big house and win. Because not only do you have to hear the cadence, you have to hear what the snap count is. You have to be able to withstand getting out of your stance a tad bit late. you're going to have to deal with these penalties. And I don't see USC shutting that down to start the game like they did with the Texas Longhorns doing. Hey, if I'm wrong, USC wins this game. However, I'm not sold on USC's run defense yet. I'm not sold on their ability to finish this game in a hostile environment. So I'm taking the Wolverines in the upset. You heard me. Now let's move on to the game that many people will look at and probably say, what are you talking about? Miami and South Florida. Now, many of you are probably going to say, what the? Yeah, I know. But the reality of it is this very well could end up in an upset. Because I want you people to look. I want you to look now and ask yourself this question. Where is this game taking place? Look at the schedule. It is in Raymond James Stadium. That's right. Remember Alabama? This could be trouble for South Florida. This could be trouble. This could be huge trouble for the Miami Hurricanes. Because if you look back at that game, this was a team that was toe-to-toe with Alabama up until about the last 9 minutes of the football game. And then it just got ugly. So I'm not going to say that this game is... I'm not going to say that the South Florida Bulls are going to beat the Miami Hurricanes. Just don't be surprised if they figure out a way to disrupt Cam Ward. Finally, there's a defensive front seven that's able to disrupt this kid. I love this kid, but I got a feeling. And then the South Florida Bulls have a unique running game. They have a unique running game, and I actually enjoyed watching that Alabama game, as unique as it is. I think Byron Brown is a dual threat QB with a lot of athletic upside. If he ever gets accurate spin in that thing, he's going to be dangerous. He is going to be dangerous. But ultimately, right now, I think that I can place my faith in the fact that the Hurricanes will win this game, but it won't be easy. I think ultimately that's what's going to happen. They're going to win this game, but don't be surprised if Miami, you look up and you see about 9:30, 10 o'clock that you see the Miami Hurricanes are on upset alert. Don't be surprised you see that little bar at the bottom that says Miami is on upset alert. But let's move on to the nail biter of the evening. The Tennessee Volunteers at the Oklahoma Sooners in Norman. Oklahoma's going to be loaded. You got to pick listen, if you live in the state of Oklahoma, you better get over to Stillwater or you better get over to Norman. You better be at a football game this Saturday. That's right. Number 6, Tennessee at number 15, Oklahoma. Now, Brent Venables, in my opinion, has been a coach that has been kind of moseying along during his tenure at Oklahoma. He's seen his share of good quarterbacks come and go. And then you have Tennessee's Nico Iamaleava is a guy whom not only is difficult to pronounce his last name, it's also difficult to see how he's come this far so fast. But I guess it's easy with Heupel's. He's had some really great quarterbacks that he's been able to bring up. Now, most people don't know this guy was the OC for the Oklahoma Sooners during their time as champions. Now, the way I see this game brewing is the Tennessee Volunteers have an offense now where they're spreading you way out into the boundaries, and they're bringing these guys bunched closer and closer, which is difficult for the safeties to see and to be able to be in two places at once. Because the reality of it is, when you don't eat the boundaries up, and I know what a lot of people are going to say, you don't want to be too wide because the corners are able to push you out of bounds easily. Partially true. But when you've got the safeties in the box and they have to cover the entire length of the field. Now, I'm sure Brent Venables is going to think about this, but at the same token, he's going to not want to get beat deep. But I think what he'll do to counter that is he's going to throw a lot of pressure, disguise coverages, and he's going to put a lot of pressure on the Tennessee Volunteers to execute their offense efficiently and effectively. And Nico's going to have to navigate that. Now, do I think Nico can do it? Well, we haven't had it. I mean, North Carolina State's a pretty good test, but North Carolina State doesn't have the same type of athletes that Oklahoma is going to have. It would not shock me if Oklahoma went into and Venables went into like a 3-3-5 or even a full-fledged dime. But the other issue that you have is that Tennessee likes to run the football. And what they like to do is they like to spread you out with it wide, and those safeties have to get wider, and they create those mismatches. They create so many mismatches. It's like the modern day version of the new option, the new spread, and it creates so many open lanes for Nico to throw at. As far as the way this game is going to go, I believe the Oklahoma Sooners are going to try to slow it down. They're going to try to run the football and use a lot of different guys carrying the football. They've got some really good athletes at the wide receiver position. I believe they're going to try to get their guys on the perimeter against Tennessee's defense, because the defensive line is pretty good. I'm not going to even joke about that. I think Tennessee's got issues on the defense, but I think this is one of their strengths, is their defensive line. But I also think if Oklahoma can wear them down and keep the ball away from them, have long sustaining drives, what is the antidote to a great offense? Keeping them off the field. I believe that Nico and that Tennessee offense is going to be drowned out by not only the noise that's going to be in Norman, but I think ultimately Venables is going to figure it out. They may score on the first drive, but I think what happens is they come back and they run it down their throat. They score, and the crowd stays in it the remainder of this game. It goes to almost like a back and forth. I think there's going to be a couple of opportunities for Oklahoma. I think they're going to create a turnover or two, rattle Nico a little bit, and we see an upset. I'm calling for the upset. I'm calling for Oklahoma to take the win in Norman. When you see teams that are not used to being in these roasted environments and these hostile environments, it's very difficult to win. Very difficult to win. But I'm taking Oklahoma, and as I said, saying Nico's name was about as hard as actually predicting the game. Nico Iamaleava. I said it. That's going to do it for us, you guys. If you got a problem with how I said Nico Iamaleava's name, just hit me up in the comments. Oh, and if you subscribe to the show, you guys, make sure you put your name down in the comments. But until the next time, same Gab channel, same Gab platform. Nico Iamaleava.